You ever wondered what the younger generation thinks about the Alabama-LSU rivalry? We're going to find out today.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. Jimmy Stein with Bama Online. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and I'll tell you about FanDuel here in just a little bit. Want to welcome all you everydayers who join us every day, and also want to welcome you newbies. And we have a newbie with us today, but he's not the standard newbie. This is James Bush, who has his own podcast where he talks about all kind of sports, but specifically about LSU because his mom is an LSU alum and a friend of mine, and he is an LSU fan himself. And, you know, I was just found out that he had his own podcast, and I thought, hey, why not find out what some of the youth thinks about Alabama LSU from the other point of view? Because, you know, Jimmy and I are we're pushing 40 now, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, that's correct. 140.
I think we pushed way past 40.
140.
I think we're pushing 55-ish. But James Bush, his podcast is The Right Bench. Is that right, James?
Yes, The Right Bench podcast.
And so, all right, that's my first question then. You know, Jimmy and I, we love the LSU-Alabama rivalry. It's a ton of fun. But realistically, at least from a Bama point of view, Alabama-LSU hasn't truly been a rivalry, even though we played quite often, until Bama got Nick Saban. And that sort of ratcheted everything up a notch. But so you, at 15 years old, you don't know much except Alabama and LSU being the rivalry in the conference. So where does it stand to you in terms of your listings of biggest rivals for LSU?
Yeah, so as an LSU fan, and I think as LSU fans around just Baton Rouge in general, we believe that the Alabama-LSU game is the biggest game of the year, for us at least. And it's been pretty one-sided, if I'm being honest, towards y'all's way. But since Saban, went to Bama, he left LSU, he won a championship with us, and then he went to NFL, then went to Bama. There's always been a little bit of hatred for Nick Saban. I respect the heck out of him, but there's a little bit of hatred. And I think even as a young person myself, the Alabama-LSU game, there's always a different feel. Like this year, the Ole Miss game was a big game for us. It's just going to be 10 times bigger against Alabama, especially this week with all the playoff implications and stuff like that. But I think just throughout me being a fan of LSU, that's definitely the biggest game on the schedule and the most fun game to go to, especially if it's in Death Valley.
James, do you think the reception is going to be for Nick Saban this weekend? He will be on campus as part of the College Game Day coverage, which is fascinating. Now Nick Saban's returning not as the Alabama head coach, but in some people's minds, he may be returning as the former head coach of Alabama and LSU, who won national championships in both places. Do you think the reception for Coach Saban is going to be any different now that he's returning as part of the Game Day crew and not on the Alabama sideline?
I think that's a great question because I was actually thinking about that too. And I think it's going to be love and hate. I think it's a love and hate relationship with Nick Saban. He obviously brought us a national championship, but him going to Bama, it was always like Bama's always going to be a big rivalry now. Whether he's there or not, we're always going to be a big rivalry with Bama, whether it's one-sided or not. I think the reception – there's going to be some boos, obviously, but I think there's just mutual respect for Nick Saban, especially from my point of view. Nick Saban is the greatest coach I've ever seen in college. So I think there will be some hate, but a lot of respect.
Yeah, I don't think, first of all, I'm just letting you know as your elder, you are not allowed to hate Nick Saban since you were born. He left LSU. You were born after he left the Miami Dolphins.
Good point. Good point.
But I'll tell you, I do respect that you already acknowledge how great he was at Alabama. And I know it's hard to do. It's hard to compliment a rival. It's very difficult. But I'm like you. And look, for those who don't know, I was once married to James's mother's friend. Not anymore, but everybody still got a good relationship. But so I've spent a lot of time at a lot of Alabama LSU games, went to some games with your mom. And that was before the Nick Saban stuff was going down. And always had a good time, always looked at the LSU game as, yes, it's big, yes, it's important, but I never, ever felt the hatred until the Nick Saban thing happened. And I know you don't really know a different world because the atmosphere is probably from the LSU side, like when Nick Saban comes in, y'all just, want to flip him off. But I always enjoyed my time at Baton Rouge, and I'm looking forward to. But what do you think about this particular game? I mean, how do you see this one ending up?
So when you go and play in a Death Valley, and when LSU has something to play for, and when they're playing for this new 12-team playoff and stuff like that, it's the hardest place to play in college football, and that's my opinion. I've been to a couple stadiums around the U.S. In the stadiums I've been in, it is the hardest place to play, especially at night. And I'm interested to see how Kalen DeBoer's team walks in, how Bama walks into this game, what's in their mind, what's their mindset. But I think this game, just with the implications, with having 2 losses, you're still playoff eligible. You still have a chance to go and compete for a national title. I think this game just holds a lot more this year than it has the past 2 years. And either way, when we play Bama, it's going to be a big game. There's going to be a big crowd. It's going to be sold out. But I think this year it's a lot more because we're still playing for something.
Yeah, I can see that for sure, and it is an extremely tough place to play. It's very, very loud, and frankly, it's just one of the coolest things. Think about it this way: ESPN, they could go to any game they want. Georgia-Ole Miss is a huge, huge game. A lot of playoff implications there. They chose Alabama-LSU for, I think, the LSU at night atmosphere is one of the best traditions in college football. And, when I think of the Alabama-LSU game, the first thing that comes to mind for me, James, is simply – there have been so many matchups, particularly in the Saban era at Alabama, that there have just been dudes all over the field. I mean, dudes everywhere. Guys that were future first-round picks littered the field from both sides. Who are 2 or 3 guys, and I know you probably have more than that, but who are 2 or 3 guys on this LSU team that you feel fit that definition? Future first-round picks, absolute dudes, great football players.
Okay, so that's a great question. And I do want to bring up that Harold Perkins Jr., who was our stud linebacker, is now out for the year. But a guy who replaced him, who I think is genuinely going to be a first-round pick, is Whit Weeks. He's our middle linebacker. He is a stud. He's a transfer from Virginia, I believe. And he's coming in to LSU. This is his second year here, I'm pretty sure. And he's brought a new life to the defense. Our defense last year was one of the worst in college football. We had one of the best offenses I've ever watched. It was probably, besides the 2019 LSU team, that was my favorite offense I've ever watched. But our defense was horrible. And he's brought a new life, and our defense looks a lot better this year. So I think Whit Weeks, with leadership capabilities, with just a dog mentality, I think Whit Weeks is a guy. And a lot of people will say Garrett Nussmeyer. I really don't believe that. I think Kyron Lacey, our wide receiver, has a better chance. We have produced a lot of receivers in the past 5 years that come out of LSU. And I think he's just the next up. Whether he goes this year, he probably won't. He'll probably go next year. I think Kyron Lacey is a guy who could go to the league and be pretty good.
Excellent.
All right. Here we are with prediction time for you. Jimmy and I will give ours a little later in the show, but what do you got for us, James?
Okay, so I was thinking about this week, and I want to take LSU, and it's going to be a little bit of a bias, obviously, but I think Death Valley is just the hardest place to play at night. And because Nick Saban's no longer the coach at Bama, I don't know if they're going to have the right mindset going into this game. I think it's really close, but I got LSU pulling it out late.
I mean, I just want to say the only team that wins more in Baton Rouge than LSU is Alabama. I just want to put that out there. I mean, I don't, I feel uncomfortable. Like you can't smack talk with a 15-year-old. Number one, he would probably beat me because I don't understand a lot of their lingo anymore. Yeah. I have 4 children myself. And when they try to communicate with me, every sentence ends in bruh. And I'm like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. But by the way, By the way, James, I see you have looks like an autographed Devin Booker jersey.
Cool.
Number one, I got to call him in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game in 2014. I do that just about every year, and it's a ton of fun. I've called some dudes. He was one of the dudes of all dudes. And then my son goes to Arizona State, and he gets to go see Devin Booker play all the time because he's at the Phoenix campus, so he goes to the Sun game all the time. So, anyway,
Suns are my favorite team. I'm not a Pelicans fan, but
wow,
I'm a big Booker fan. He's my favorite player. So
he's awesome.
Y'all do love Herb Jones down there, though.
Oh yeah. Everyone loves Herb Jones, whether you're a Pelicans fan or not.
Yeah, I get it. All right, my friend. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today, buddy. It was a pleasure having you, and best of luck on your podcast. And be sure to tell all your friends to subscribe and buy some of the stuff we peddle. That they have to, some of it they have to be 18 and older. So tell them to wait 3 years.
I got you. Thank you.
Appreciate it, James.
Thanks,
You've been great, man. Great job.
James.
All right. I removed him, but I don't know how to do this. Okay.
Wow.
So I'm just going to go.
That was like you were a Thanos snapping a finger there.
Now look at this. If James is still on, he's wondering like, what is wrong with that human? There we go. I got it. All right. Let's go to our first break. 5-hour energy. We love 5-hour energy around here. I'm not sure. I think James can have a 5-hour energy. I'm not sure. But
It's only been alive 5 hours.
If y'all remember, I did tell you a story about giving one of my children a 5-hour energy to stay awake for the Tennessee game. That is not recommended. But
Child Protective Services was knocking on your door.
It was a long time ago. So let's not even bring that up anymore. But I do want to tell you, our friends over at 5-Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life, y'all. It takes a lot of energy to power through all day tailgates and touchdown celebrations and agonizing second overtime wins, which is why they've created Stan the Fan 5-Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy you need is just for you. Is for super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and the last to leave. 5-Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you're rooting for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, 5-Hour Energy, Stan the Fan, is for you. What's your favorite fan fuel this week? Well, it's going to be this one. Go get it. Whatever it is, do it with a 5-Hour Energy. Available at 5hourenergy.com. And of course, as always, is shipped nationwide. All right. So I want to let everybody know that James, he did. Let me tell you how much better James was than, not just at 15. When you and I were first doing this.
Yeah.
James was the seasoned veteran.
It was cool having someone on the show that thinks Ryan Williams is an old man.
That is so true. And it is, but I did find it, interesting when the whole concept of this was first brought up. I was like, okay, but I don't really, I hope he sort of knows what he's talking about. I don't know the kid, right?
He knew the team. He was born the same year of the game of the century in Tuscaloosa, the 2011 Alabama-LSU game of the century. He was born that year. Yeah, that was 15 years ago.
No,
that's 13 years ago. 13 years ago. Wow.
James also better at algebra.
better at basic math, basic human functioning. He's better at that.
You don't know what you're going to get.
I was close. He was 2.
Jimmy and I do no prep work. We didn't even prep this kid. Literally, all the correspondence were today. And so I'm super impressed with everything he knows. Yep. But I do find it very interesting. Like, you and I are at 52 and 54 or whatever we are. And so we remember, Bobby Humphrey over the top fumbling in 1986 when he should have been called a touchdown. If there was a review, it would have been in Legion Field. I remember Lee Osment taking 6 minutes and 28 seconds to return an intercepted 2-point conversion from one end of the field to the other. We remember all that stuff. that was way before he was an apple in his mama's eye, before his mama was probably an apple in her mama's eye. So
yeah, well, he's got history books. I mean, I know a lot about. I know you do too. We know a lot about Alabama in the '60s and even '70s when I was a kid. I mean, we know that stuff.
You know it more than I, because you're more on the. I feel like myself, I'm more of a newer generation guy. Like somebody was talking to us the other day about the.
Well, I do a lot of reading. I obviously don't do much math. I skipped math. I was busy. I was busy reading about 1960s Alabama football.
Well, so for instance, the Alabama-LSU game that ended 3-0 in 1979, and just a deluge. Like yep. I've always known that score happened.
Right.
I don't know anything about that score.
About
the game. Right. You know what I mean? So, like, yes, I'm a historian in the sense that, yeah, I think we got screwed in 1966, not winning the championship. But I can't tell you anything about that season necessarily because it was 6 years before I was born.
Yeah, no. I mean, so he's going to know things in the historical sense. But, here's the thing that surprised me about the opinions he shared. And again, he is a bright guy. He was a little harsh on Nuss. I think Garrett Nussmeyer is great. I mean, again, Jim, I brought this up several times this week. Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl believes Garrett Nussmeyer has a chance to be QB1 in this draft class, which is a fun opinion because no one else is saying that. And yet Nagy's got a ton of credibility. So you better not rule that out. I think Nussmeyer's great. And again, one of my numbers, and we're going to talk about it today on this show, I think Nussmeyer's going to throw for 350 yards against Alabama. He's going to, and that hasn't been done very often in history, but I think he will on Saturday.
A couple of things. First of all, I think it also adds to the credibility of James that he's not just a 15-year-old fanboy going, I love Garrett Nussmeyer.
He's the best I've ever seen. Yeah,
which is the exact thing I would have done when I was 15. So 72 to 87, I'm 87. I didn't think anybody on Alabama was the best. I didn't think anybody was the best I'd ever seen. I probably thought Murray Hill was the best I'd ever seen.
He's huge. That kid, he's huge. He's no. To do this job, and James has already learned it. To do this job, look, everybody listening to the show, most everybody listening is an Alabama fan, and me and Luke are Alabama fans. Everybody knows that. We all pull for the same team, but you have to retain some level of objectivity to do the job because the job just can't be coming on here and telling everyone that every player that plays for Alabama is a first-round pick and a great person and a candidate to win the Nobel Peace Prize. You have to have some level of objectivity. Some do it better than others. I'm sure I fail at times, but we have to be objective or the show's not good. It's not just a cheerleading show and hey, all these people are the best and the coaches are perfect. It can't be that. That's it's boring and B, worse, it's not truthful. So he obviously has a clear grasp on that for a young journalist, a budding sports journalist. And he's got a bright future.
Yeah, I just it's just so funny to me to think about. All right, he was actually born the year Alabama won the national championship, right? So his whole life has been nothing but essentially Alabama awesomeness. Now, in that time, LSU has also won a national championship and played for another. But for the most part, we have, outside of 2019, we have ruined a lot of their years, or ruined a lot of their seasons. And so for him, it's just like, thank God the witch is dead. And I think probably the older guard is like, hey, let me tell you something, kid. Alabama's come in here and won. They shut out Nick Saban with Dennis Franchione in our place that night when we had the better team,
Yeah.
So,
I was there for 31-0.
It's the coldest night of ever. I'll tell you a quick story about that.
Yeah, it was cold. Oh, I was there. You were there? You were a student then, right?
No.
No.
Are you serious?
See, this is how my math has been. My math, I have taken the day off from math. Which is so weird because I just played along on the SEC network with the birthday game with Doring and Peter Burns. They do the birthday game where they name a celebrity and you have to say how old they are. I was just nailing it like I was Rain Man. I was Dustin Hoffman Rain Manning the birthday game over there. Then I come over here and clearly cannot do basic math. I thought Luke graduated from Alabama about 11 years ago, and he's 64 years old.
So that was 2002.
Oh yeah.
And I think we beat them. Was it 31-0?
My head, it was 31-0, or was it 30-0 or 32-0? It was somewhere in there.
I think it was 31-0.
I think,
and I'm talking about, it was so cold, Jimmy. I was freezing, and the people. So I was with my first wife. I can't remember if we were married or not yet, but because she did go to LSU. So we're in the stadium and it's freezing. But I'm like, hey, let's stick around. We're kicking their butt. And she doesn't really care either way. Well, a lot of LSU people left. So now the ones that were left were mad, but they stayed long enough to where they quit being mad and they just got really drunk. So one guy, started a beach ball thing where they were hitting the beach ball through the stadium. Well, and the beach ball goes way somewhere. And so our crowd way up in the nosebleeds didn't have the beach ball anymore. So a guy took his hot dog, which was mildly frozen now, out of its bun, and they started throwing that around. Like, not from not like 5 feet away. I'm talking about they were humming that mother 2 rows and 70 seats over. And people were catching it and it was falling apart. And then they'd throw it. And finally somebody called it, I have the wiener and the wiener is mine. And I'll never forget that line.
Are you sure this isn't a fever dream? This really happened?
My fever dreams aren't as weird as going to LSU games.
That is one of the weirdest in-stadium stories I've ever heard. I can't believe it. Wow.
That's crazy stuff, but that's what they do.
Kenny King was seriously injured in that game.
That's right.
I remember that, and because I was really worried for him, and I think he was taken off in one of the spinal carts, and then of course he was fine. But gosh, I remember being freaked out about it to the point that I remember it to this day, even though that was, per my math, 37 years ago.
Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats and view live play on so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's only at FanDuel.com, baby. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, which is an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
The National Football League.
Okay, so prediction time, Jimmy.
Yeah.
First of all, we got to zip through this because we told a bunch of hot dog stories today for whatever reason.
Man, made me hungry for hot dogs.
I'm picking Alabama 30-26. I'm a confidence level of 5 out of 17. I'm just not really super confident about it. And this is more me being a Bammer and saying, hey, I have belief in Kalen DeBoer after an off week, and I have belief that Jalen Milroe is going to pull it together and I'm going to predict too that Jalen Milroe is his best game of the year. And Ryan Williams scores a touchdown.
Man, that's crazy because we don't talk about our predictions before we share them, and man, our predictions are so close. I'm saying 31-27 Alabama, so basically identical to Luke's. I have more confidence in this prediction. First of all, I feel that after pouring into the numbers like I have all week, I think Alabama's a better team. I think they've proven that through 8 games. Alabama's been better than LSU. Not by a lot. I think Alabama's been a full touchdown better than LSU this year, maybe even 10 points. But I think playing in Baton Rouge is going to sort of even that out a little bit. So I think it's going to be a 1-score game or less. If by that means 7 points or likely less. But I think there'll be a lot of offense. I do think Garrett Nussmeyer is going to have a ton of success throwing the ball against this Alabama defense, which weirdly the numbers say they're pretty good against the pass, but my eyeballs say they're not. The numbers say Alabama's not good against the run, but my eyeballs say they actually are. I mean,
yeah, that is weird.
So, I mean, that is weird. But I think Alabama's better against the run than the numbers suggest, worse against the pass than the numbers suggest. And Garrett Nussmeyer is going to take a lot of advantage and have a 350 night. I think they're going to score maybe as many as 4 touchdowns. There'll be big plays. I think LSU gets ahead early. I think Alabama's going to have to withstand I'm going to say doo-doo storm because I don't think I can say the other word. But
yeah, I've told you.
Do I have to pick up another? Do I have to pick another word?
Moist. I don't.
I got to go with another word. Okay, I'll find another word.
How about crap? I think we can say crap.
We can say crap. Okay, Alabama's got to withstand the early crap storm because it is coming. uh, and then Alabama's going to have, I think, a really big second half with Jalen Milroe having some success on the ground, but a lot of success throwing it. I think Jalen Milroe I know a lot of people are like, hey, this is the week for Jalen's legs. I don't disagree. I think Alabama wins the game, though. Explosive pass plays from Jalen to the receivers, Ryan, Jeremy, maybe even K-Law going home to play. So Alabama in an exciting high-scoring game, 31-27.
Great storyline here. Aaron Anderson playing his old team and K-Law coming home. And they're basically the same person. I've never seen them in the room at the same time. And I think that that's going to be interesting. Which one of those two is going to have a better game? That's a great question for some folks. All right, let's move on to a couple of other key games. At Ole Miss welcoming Georgia. Jimmy, I'm subscribed to a theory. You can't do it until you do it. And until Ole Miss beats somebody of consequence, I'm going to say they can't do it. And so, I think they've got a chance. Yes, this Georgia team, this actually may be the worst Georgia team of the last 3 or 4 years. So they should have an opportunity, right? But until they do this, I'm not going to believe in them. So, meanwhile, Lane Kiffin's playing all these games with the injury report. If you think that Ole Miss is going to win this game, I suggest that you put it in a parlay with the Washington Generals beating the Harlem Globetrotters and really capitalize on the money.
I've felt the exact way. I would have given that basically the exact same speech you gave had we been picking this game all year long, and my mind flipped this week. And I'm violating all of my rules about picking games because I think what really gets people wrong is recency bias. But recency bias is why I'm picking Ole Miss here. And again, I've thought Georgia all year was going to win this game. I flipped my pick this week. I just think Ole Miss is playing better than Georgia. I think seasons are an up and down roller coaster, and Ole Miss is on an up, Ole Miss is on an up, and Georgia's on a down. Ole Miss wins at one of the biggest games in program history.
Man, there will be a party on the Grove.
That goalpost, they're gonna tear 3 goalposts down. They're gonna tear down both goalposts, go to the practice field, and tear down those goalposts.
They're going to have a goalpost 3-way. They might
Katy Perry's going to get on a plane and fly to Oxford.
They need that goalpost may end up in the Tennessee River with the Tennessee goalpost. Pretty soon you ain't going to be able to sail on the Tennessee River if we keep losing them there. Boats are going to be bottoming out on goalposts.
Lane Kiffin will be so popular in Oxford. I mean, Taylor Swift will be jealous.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I was trying to come up with who would be real popular in Oxford. But, I mean, Taylor's pretty popular everywhere. Right?
Katy Perry was, but
Katy Perry was, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I can't. There's so many things I want to say, and I can't. All right. Any other games that are worth a lick? Please don't say Tennessee, Mississippi State.
No, Tennessee's going to absolutely. I mean, of course, I said Tennessee was going to beat Kentucky by 7 touchdowns, and they didn't.
No.
But Mississippi State's pretty bad, and Tennessee, I don't think that game's going to be close at all. I think Missouri, Oklahoma is interesting.
Well, the line is flip-flopped on that one. It went from Missouri like 1.5 to Oklahoma 3.
I do think Oklahoma's playing the right quarterback, and we've talked about it here on this show. Switching to Hawkins, I get it briefly because Jackson Arnold kind of had a meltdown, but Jackson Arnold gives them the best chance to win the games,
right.
and he's clearly got a lot of talent. I think Oklahoma's playing the right guy. And, hey, for Alabama's sake, I think Alabama fans need Missouri to win this game because it helps Alabama's win over Missouri, and you don't want Oklahoma all of a sudden finding themselves late because they're a better team than their record indicates.
I said that yesterday, college football with Spencer McLaughlin. He had Matt Moscano and me on, and I said that because we went over all the games. And I said, that's what worries me about this Oklahoma team. They play Missouri. Let's say they win it. Okay. Now, whether they win it good, in a good way, in an ugly way, whatever, but then they have an off week and then they have us. And if you want to get your season right, and let's say that we come in and let's say we beat LSU, let's say you and I are right.
Yeah.
If they want to make their season right, and if Brent Venables wants to regain some faith from the fan base, beat Alabama.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons.
Next week,
It's one of the reasons I don't like I've said about Alabama LSU being an elimination game. I don't like the term. I don't like the narrative for a few reasons. Number one, I think a 3-loss team has a chance to get in. We've argued about that before, but I think a 3-loss team has a chance to get in this year. Secondly, Alabama's still got to beat Oklahoma. I mean, if we're going to assume a win and everybody's going to get mad at me, I'll assume a home win over Auburn a lot more before I assume a road win over Oklahoma and Norman, because their defense is for real, and Jackson Arnold's got some talent. At some point, it's going to happen for him. So I don't like the winning you're in, losing you're out against LSU, because there's still too much meat on the bone left when this game's over.
Yeah. Now, what I'm saying is, yes, it's an elimination game, but it's also both teams are already in the playoffs. So, because Alabama and LSU are both in the playoffs, any loss from this point forward, you're out. I know you keep telling us the 3-loss thing. I appreciate that you're going to ride that all the way. You're a sinking fist into the ocean, going to ride that wave to the end. You are completely wrong, but that's okay. I appreciate that your stance on this.
I could be. I could be wrong.
But I don't think elimination game is the wrong way to put it. I think it's more like both teams are already in the playoffs, and the loser of Alabama LSU is out. I think that, and then if LSU were to lose to Vandy, or who else they play, Oklahoma or Bama, Oklahoma or Auburn or Mercer or whatever, they're out. So we got to run, Jimmy. That's going to do it for today's podcast. We're going post game tomorrow.
Post game, 30 minutes after the game.
All right, so we'll be there. Y'all be ready for us, and until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.